Good evening, one and all. We welcome you all to the 8th day of 10 Days International Conference on Social Work, Sciences, Technologies, Environment, Climate Change, Disaster Management, Health, Well-being, and Sustainable Development 2023, commemorating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, nation celebrating 76 years of independence, India's G20 presidency, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030 as part of awareness and campaigns, World Health Organization 75th anniversary, and also 4th National Social Work Week in collaboration with Sri Holistic Health Foundation India and Sri Research Institute Center for Arts, Sciences and Wellbeing, and international and national multidisciplinary fraternity. So before we start our sessions today, let's take the blessings of Almighty.
कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
With the blessings of Almighty, we shall continue with today's sessions. Presenters, those who have registered for presentations under on-spot registration, are requested to share your details, name, designation, organization, and topic in chat box. We'll be inviting you after this session. So today, you can leave the message in chat box to host or co-host. Today, we are commemorating World Mosquito Day. Mosquitoes are responsible for spreading malaria, a disease that kills over 500,000 people every year. When Ronald Ross discovered that mosquitoes transmit malaria in 1897, he revolutionized our understanding of the disease and led to increased awareness about the malaria prevention. Today, the best way to prevent the disease is to avoid bites by infected mosquitoes, insecticide-treated nets, preventive treatment for pregnant women and infants, and indoor residual spraying are all ways to reduce transmission. And other ways. But the prevalence of mosquitoes in hard-hit areas like sub-Saharan Africa pose a challenge to eradication of the measures. Mosquitoes, those tiny blood-sucking insects, are responsible for transmitting serious diseases such as malaria, and with no currently vaccine available, though they have discovered long back, but still today, though our science has reached space, even other planets, but still we are unable to find, or we could not find vaccine for malaria or solution for malaria. And as the survival of the fittest, Darwin evolution theory, mosquitoes remains from over 30 million years. With no vaccine currently available, malaria, an ancient disease that began afflicting humans from the beginning of the agriculture and modern civilization, remains a deadly threat to pose around the world. Caused by Plasmodium parasites, malaria shows up in the historic text as far as back as first millennium BCE. In fact, the first traces of malaria parasites were first found in the mosquito remains that were over 30 million years old. Malaria has affected every continent except Antarctica and remains a widespread problem in parts of the world, including sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and the Caribbean. Over 200 million people still contract malaria each year. In 2010, 90% of the malaria deaths occurred in Africa. The World Health Organization reports concerns about the drug resistance malaria, which can hamper efforts to reduce and spread of the disease. So this day, World Mosquito Day, honors the date when Sir Ronald Ross, a British Army surgeon working in India, proved that mosquitoes transmit malaria by identifying pigmented malaria parasites in mosquitoes that fed on an infected patient. This discovery revolutionized our knowledge of the disease and led to new preventive measures. Ross won the Nobel Prize for Physiology or Medicine in 1900. Ross declared the first Mosquito Day then and there, stating that the world must be made aware of the link between the mosquitoes and malaria. Although an improved understanding of the disease has led to more innovative preventive measures and medical treatments, malaria vaccine remains elusive. The disease makes its way to Europe, likely traveling down Nile to Caribbean and spreading north and arriving in Rome in 1st century CE. After malaria decimated the population, Rome's Campagna region remained sparsely settled until as late as 19th century. So malaria epidemic devastates Roman Campagna in 79 CE. Ronald Ross discovers the link between female mosquitoes and the malaria transmission, leading to the new understanding of how to track and stop the spread of disease. In 1897, the Appalachian region of the US Southwest was deeply affected by malaria until Tennessee Valley Authority brought power, water, and sanitation to the region in 1930s. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention, born from a prior organization called Malaria Control in War Areas, in short known as MCW, focuses heavily on controlling and eliminating malaria in its first few years. So that the female anopheles or mosquitoes of these species pick up the parasite from infected people when they bite to obtain blood needed to nurture their eggs. The female Anopheles mosquito is the only mosquito to transmit malaria, usually between the hours of 9 p.m. and 5 a.m., that is in the nights. Even a single bite from an infected mosquito can lead to malaria. As there is no vaccine for the malaria and treatment and preventive action is only the solution. So start working or associating volunteering with local nonprofits or local health and medical infrastructure or institutions, organizations. Or you can also raise funds for the anti-malaria efforts, donate the money to the organization that distribute mosquito nets, supports community with medication and treatment, or work on vaccine and treatment and research efforts in cash or kind, or in whichever way you can contribute. Learn about how malaria spreads, where it's most prevalent, and how to protect yourself if you live in or travel to a risk area. Malaria can affect anyone in any part of the world. So it's important that people have accurate information about the disease, symptoms, and treatment. Finding some useful information from a reputed person or organization is a great option today by attending events like this or any events which are disseminating information on malaria. And mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are the deadliest animal, causes more deaths than any other animal on the earth. When they are trying to reproduce, female mosquitoes need to feed on blood for the protein. So male and female mosquitoes not trying to produce eggs subsist on flower nectar. Only female mosquitoes bite, and only when breeding. Male and female mosquitoes synchronize their wingbacks with their mates. Unlike most bugs, mosquitoes aren't attracted to light, but to carbon dioxide. This gives indication that a mammal with tasty blood is nearby. The sharp proboscis the mosquitoes use to draw blood has inspired the design of improved, less painful hypodermic needles used in the medicine. So malaria is a common disease. We'll look into it in detail and can show up practically anywhere, and it is important to know how it is transmitted, when you are at risk, and how to protect yourself. Without a vaccine, malaria still ravages populations around the world. Research organizations are working consistently to find a vaccine and improve treatment. Although there's a long way to go before the disease is eradicated, medical science breakthroughs have led to the improvement of treatments for patients, better prevention measures, and stronger understanding of the disease and its vectors. We'll resume in a minute. So as already mentioned, on August 20, 1897, a British doctor made a groundbreaking discovery. Sir Ronald Ross found that female Anopheles mosquitoes transmit malaria between humans, and the parasite was located in the mosquito's stomach. To commemorate this moment in the history, World Mosquito Day, in short known as WMD, was founded. Each year, WMD represents us with an opportunity to raise awareness of the dangers posed by the mosquito-borne diseases and the ongoing efforts to combat the world's deadliest creature. Today, more than 125 years or later, and so, mosquito-borne diseases kill more than 1 million people and infect up to 700 million people each year, almost 1 in 10 people. Already in 2023, there have been more than 3 million dengue cases and over 1,500 dengue-related deaths globally. Argentina, Peru, and Bangladesh have experienced the largest dengue outbreaks in their histories, while Paraguay was witnessed a sharp rise in chikungunya cases. As climate change, globalization, and urbanization accelerate the speed in which diseases move across the regions, it is important than ever for the people to be aware of the risks and take action. Wolbachia method is playing a vital role in helping fight mosquito-borne diseases and protect communities across the world. Evidence-based, safe, and one-time non-GMO intervention has been rolled out in 13 countries over the past decade, protecting almost 11 million people, and its effectiveness for dengue control have been demonstrated in multiple public health interventions. Wolbachia mosquitoes have a reduced ability to transmit viruses to people, decreasing the risk of dengue, Zika, chikungunya, and yellow fever outbreaks. They do this by breeding with wild mosquitoes until over several generations, and they replace the local mosquito population. The World Mosquito Program, which is in short known as WMP, is a non-profit group of companies owned by Monash University that works to protect the global community from mosquito-borne diseases such as dengue, Zika, yellow fever, and chikungunya. The Wolbachia method works by introducing Wolbachia into Aedes aegypti mosquitoes, the primary vector of the dengue, Zika, chikungunya, and yellow fever viruses. So, releasing of Wolbachia mosquitoes in areas where these mosquitoes-borne viruses are endemic. Once mosquitoes are released, they breed with wild mosquitoes. Over time, the percentage of mosquitoes carrying Wolbachia grows until it remains high without the need of further releases. So Wolbachia mosquitoes are released to protect almost 11 million people as per December 2022. In areas where Wolbachia is self-sustaining at a high level, notified dengue and chikungunya incidents have been significantly reduced. The World Mosquito Program is currently operating in 13 countries around the world, including Australia, Brazil, Colombia, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Honduras, Laos, Vietnam, Kiribati, Fiji, Vanuatu, New Caledonia, and Mexico. So World Mosquito Day campaign this year takes to Bali, Indonesia, where one of latest project is set to start in November.
The mosquito known as Aedes aegypti originated in Africa. Over the last 400 years, it has spread throughout all tropical regions of the world, transmitting viruses like dengue, Zika, chikungunya, and yellow fever. Today, this mosquito puts more than half the world's population at risk of dengue alone. But we made a breakthrough that changed everything. We found a way to prevent Aedes aegypti from transmitting dengue and other mosquito-borne diseases. Our method uses safe and naturally occurring bacteria called Wolbachia that live inside insect cells and are passed from one generation to the next through the insect eggs. Here's how it works. Wolbachia are found naturally in an estimated 50% of all the different species of insects. Insects that include fruit flies, moths, dragonflies, and butterflies. The secret to the success of Wolbachia is how it manipulates the reproduction of the insects it lives in to give itself an advantage. It works like this. If a male insect has Wolbachia and mates with a female that doesn't, then the eggs she lays won't hatch. If the female has Wolbachia and the male doesn't, she would lay her normal number of eggs. They would all hatch and all offspring will carry Wolbachia. When two insects that both carry Wolbachia mate, the eggs will hatch and all offspring will carry Wolbachia. Over a few generations, the number of individuals carrying Wolbachia increases rapidly until nearly all the insects within a population have the bacteria. We wanted to see if we could use Wolbachia as a way to stop dengue transmission. To do this, we would first have to move Wolbachia into the mosquito so that it would grow and be passed between generations. Using microscopic needles, we took Wolbachia from the fruit fly and injected it directly into young Aedes aegypti eggs. It took us thousands and thousands of attempts, but finally we were successful. And once the mosquitoes carried Wolbachia, they naturally passed it on to their offspring without the need for further injections of Wolbachia. We then took the mosquitoes that contained Wolbachia and infected them with dengue and found something really exciting. The virus didn't grow well in the mosquito, and if it can't grow, it can't be transmitted between people. Our next step was to test the approach in communities where dengue had been a problem for years. Wolbachia mosquitoes were released once a week for 10 to 20 weeks, and within a few months, close to 100% of the mosquitoes had Wolbachia. Years later, they still do. The results are clear. Dengue cases have dramatically decreased in communities where Wolbachia mosquitoes were released. It is our hope that with continued success, the Wolbachia control method will protect the health of the nearly 4 billion people globally who live with the risk of dengue and other mosquito-borne diseases every day.
So as already informed about this mosquito-borne diseases, when a mosquito feeds on blood, it also swallows any viruses or parasites living in the blood. These viruses and parasites can be transferred to the next person the mosquito bites through its saliva. Any disease that is spread in this way from mosquito to human or animal is known as mosquito-borne disease. While the measures may not be affected through mosquito-borne diseases, can cause immense suffering for humans. Roughly 390 million people are infected each year with dengue, and hundreds of thousands more are affected by Zika, chikungunya, and yellow fever. These are common types of mosquito-borne diseases, which include malaria, dengue, West Nile virus, chikungunya, yellow fever, and Zika. Zika fever, also known as Zika virus disease or simply Zika, is mosquito-borne disease controlled by Zika virus. In many cases, there are no symptoms, but it can present in a similar way to dengue fever. Symptoms might include a fever, redness, joint pain, headache, and a maculopapular rash. Women who are infected with Zika virus during pregnancy can bear children with serious health conditions, including microcephaly, which can cause lifelong disabilities. Common symptoms include rash, fever, conjunctivitis, headache, muscle and joint aches. Most people with Zika virus infection do not develop symptoms. For those who do, symptoms tend to last for 2 to 7 days. In some cases, women who are infected by Zika virus during pregnancy bear children with serious health conditions, including microcephaly, which can cause lifelong disability. When an outbreak of the Zika virus swept across the LCVD in 2016, Sylvia never thought that she would be one of the many programmed women, pregnant women who is affected. Today, the mother-daughter duo are learning to live with its impacts.
Yo me di cuenta cuando me hicieron la ultra a los 6 meses, porque en la primera me salió que todo estaba bien. Pues cuando comenzó el rumor que del Zika y todo eso, que los niños salían malitos de su cerebro, yo me puse a pensar, no creo que habiendo tantas embarazadas sea yo la que salga con eso, pero pues así pasó. A los 6 meses me di cuenta que ella traía eso, que su cabeza estaba bastante pequeña. Pues para nosotros fue un momento muy, muy difícil. Llegó el tiempo de la aceptación, de ver para adelante el futuro de ella. Aseguraban los doctores que la cabecita de la niña venía aguadita y que ella tenía poco tiempo de vida. Yo no sé, yo mi fe en Dios siempre, que mi hija iba a vivir, que Dios me iba a permitir conocerla y aprender mucho de ella, porque ella me ha demostrado que es una persona muy valiente. Escuchar el llanto de mi bebé fue lo más lindo que me pudo pasar, porque los doctores todo eran negativo para ellos. Ellos decían que ella no iba a llorar. Y al escuchar su llanto, no sé, mi corazón se alegró demasiado, porque yo sentí que Dios estuvo conmigo en todo momento. Trato de hacerle casi todos los días su terapia, sus estimulaciones, sus estiramientos. Pues ella es una niña que la verdad colabora bastante. Ella no molesta casi todo el día. Pues todos se admiran al conocerla y como ella ha avanzado en el transcurso de 5 años, porque ella cuando nació, ella era demasiado pequeña, su cabecita muy pequeña, pero al transcurso del año ella comenzó con su peso. A mí me llena de alegría que una persona me diga, qué hermoso está tu bebé. Sí, es una satisfacción bien bonita que se siente.
Since then, Zika has been reported from more than 80 countries, starting from Zika in Africa, the Americas, Asia, and the Pacific. As Zika virus infection often causes little or mild illness, it is difficult to quantify the incidence of infection. Since 2050, more than 9 lakh suspected cases of Zika have been reported. Zika can spread wherever Aedes aegypti mosquitoes are present. It is a virus transmitted between humans, primarily by this mosquito, which is commonly found around homes and urban areas. There is no treatment for Zika virus other than rest fluids, and management of symptoms with common medicines. Symptoms of Zika virus infection are usually mild and resolve within 7 days or a week. There is no vaccine for Zika virus, so prevention relies on reducing exposure to mosquito bites by removing mosquito breeding sites, using insecticides to suppress the mosquito population, and wearing protective clothing and repellents. However, the world's mosquito program, Welbekia method, is showing promising results internationally. It is helping to block the transmission of Zika as well as other viruses transmitted by Aedes aegypti mosquitoes such as dengue, chikungunya, and yellow fever. And another mosquito-borne disease is dengue fever, which is a mosquito-borne disease caused by the dengue virus. Symptoms typically begin 3 to 14 days after infection. Common symptoms of dengue include fever, rash, nausea, and aches and pains, lasting up to a week. Some people with dengue develop complications that can result in internal bleeding, shock, and even death. Severe dengue requires careful monitoring in hospital. In recent decades, global incidence of dengue has grown dramatically, with more than half of the world's population now at risk. Every year, approximately 36,000 people around the world die from dengue fever. So the common symptoms include high fever, headache, vomiting, joint pain, rashes, and symptoms typically last for 2 to 7 days. In recent decades, the global incidence of dengue has grown dramatically. Today, more than half of the world population is at risk. When the World Mosquito Program began, dengue fever was the primary focus of research and is still an important focus. According to the World Health Organization, dengue fever is one of the top 10 global health threats. It's also the most rapidly spreading. There has been a 30-fold increase in a global incidence over the past 50 years. And common symptoms of dengue include fever, rash, nausea, and aches and pains. Lasting up to a week, some people with dengue develop complications that can result in internal bleeding, shock, and even death. Severe dengue requires careful monitoring in hospital. There are 4 serotypes of dengue virus, all of which can cause disease. Prior infection with one dengue serotype is a severe risk factor for developing later infections. Dengue can occur anywhere where Aedes aegypti mosquitoes live. The mosquito-significant dengue epidemics in recent years have occurred in Southeastern Asia Americas, and the Western Pacific, approximately 141 countries are affected with dengue. More than half of the world's population is at risk of dengue infection. Each year, an estimated 390 million dengue infections occur around the world, resulting in up to 36,000 deaths. Dengue spreads where Aedes aegypti mosquitoes are present, and the mosquito is commonly found in around homes where it breeds in small water containers. When an Aedes aegypti mosquito bites someone with dengue, it can become infected and transmit the virus to another person when it bites again. There is no specific medical treatment for dengue, which has no specific medical treatment, which has flu-like symptoms. Monitoring for warning signs of severe disease is important. Urgent medical intervention is required if indications of shock or bleeding develop, as these complications can be lethal. Conventional strategies for dengue control rely heavily on reducing the number of water-holding containers that support mosquito breeding and using insecticides to suppress the mosquito population. However, it is challenging to achieve sustained reductions in mosquito numbers, and dengue outbreaks can still occur. Using personal repellents and wearing protective clothing can help to prevent mosquito bites. In contrast, the world's mosquito program's Wolbachia method doesn't aim to reduce the mosquito population rather than to replace it with Wolbachia mosquitoes. This helps block the transmission of the dengue as well as other viruses transmitted by the Aedes aegypti mosquitoes, such as Zika, chikungunya, and yellow fever. Research shows that in communities where high levels of Wolbachia mosquitoes are present, the incidence of dengue and other AIDS-borne diseases is significantly reduced. So another disease, which is a mosquito-borne disease, is yellow fever. Yellow fever is a viral disease of typically short duration. In most cases, symptoms include fever, chills, loss of appetite, nausea, muscle pains, particularly in the back, and headaches. Symptoms tend to improve within 5 days. However, approximately 30,000 people around the world die from yellow fever every year. Yellow fever is an acute viral hemorrhagic disease transmitted by infected Aedes aegypti mosquitoes. The yellow in the name refers to the jaundice that affects some patients. Common symptoms include fever, headache, chills, back pain, fatigue, vomiting. Yellow fever is an acute viral hemorrhagic disease transmitted by infected Aedes aegypti mosquitoes and is a viral disease of typically short duration. As I mentioned, in most cases, symptoms include fevers, chills, loss of appetite, nausea, muscle pains, particularly in the back, and headaches. Symptoms tend to improve within 5 days. However, The disease claims lives of approximately 30,000 people around the world every year. Yellow fever is caused by virus transmitted primarily by Aedes aegypti mosquitoes. And these mosquitoes bite during the day, usually after sunrise and around sunset. Along with fever, headache, chills, back pain, fatigue, there might be symptoms of vomiting, jaundice, bleeding from the mouth, nose, eyes, or stomach, which improve within 5 days. Yellow fever is endemic across Africa and Latin America. Of the 47 countries affected, 13 in the Americas have the highest risk of outbreaks, including Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia. The World Mosquito Program have begun work in these countries in an effort to end the spread of the disease. With the urban transmission of the yellow fever by Aedes aegypti mosquitoes have not been reported in Brazil since 1942. The risk of re-urbanization of the disease remains. This mosquito species is found in most tropical and subtropical cities in the world. They were the main carrier of yellow fever in the past. According to the World Health Organization and the Pan American Health Organization, yellow fever causes 20,000 2 lakhs infections and 30 lakh deaths annually. Yellow fever can spread wherever Aedes aegypti and hemogogus mosquitoes are present. There are 3 ways yellow fever can be transmitted. So, Wolbachia method provides protection against the yellow fever transmitted by the Aedes aegypti mosquito, which is commonly found in urban settings such as homes and urban areas. Large outbreaks of urban yellow fever tend to occur when the infected people introduce the virus into heavily populated areas with a high density of Aedes aegypti mosquitoes and where people have little or no immunity, and due to lack of vaccination or prior exposure to yellow fever. There is no treatment for yellow fever other than rest and management of fever with common medicines. Safe and affordable and yellow fever vaccine is most important means to combat the virus. The World Mosquitoes Program, Wolbachia method, could potentially help to reduce yellow fever transmission as well as other viruses transmitted by Aedes aegypti mosquitoes such as dengue, Zika, and chikungunya. There is no specific antiviral drug for yellow fever, patients should rest, stay hydrated, and seek medical advice. Depending on the clinical manifestations and other circumstances, patients may be sent home, be referred for an in-hospital management, or require emergency treatment and urgent reference. Treatment for dehydration, liver and kidney failure, and fever improves outcomes. Associated bacterial infections can be treated with antibiotics. Yellow fever is difficult to diagnose, especially during the early stages. A more severe cases can be confused with malaria, leptospirosis, viral hepatitis, and other hemorrhagic fevers, infection with other flaviviruses such as dengue and poison. Polymerase chain reaction, PCR testing in blood can sometimes detect the virus in early stages of disease, and in later stages, testing to identify antibodies is needed. That is ELISA and PRNT testing. So vaccination is an important means of preventing yellow fever. The yellow fever vaccine is safe, affordable, and a single dose provides lifelong protection against yellow fever disease. A booster dose of yellow fever vaccine is not needed. The vaccine provides effective immunity within 10 days for 80 to 100% of people vaccinated, and within 30 days for the more than 99% of people vaccinated. Side effects from the yellow fever vaccine are rare. People who are usually excluded from vaccine include infants aged less than 9 months, pregnant women expecting during a yellow fever outbreak when the risk of infection is high, people with severe allergies to egg protein, and people with severe immunodeficiency due to symptomatic HIV, AIDS, or other causes, or who has thymus disorder. In accordance with the international health regulations, countries have the right to require travelers to provide a certificate of yellow fever vaccination. If there are medical grounds for not getting vaccination, this must be certified by the appropriate authorities. Prompt detection of yellow fever and rapid response through emergency vaccination campaigns are essential for controlling outbreaks. However, underreporting is a concern. World Health Organization estimates the true number of cases to be 10 to 250 times than what is now being reported. World Health Organization recommends that every at-risk country has at least one national laboratory where basic yellow fever blood tests can be performed. A confirmed case of yellow fever is an unvaccinated population is considered an outbreak. A confirmed case in any context must be fully investigated. Investigation teams must assess and respond to the outbreak with both emergency measures and longer-term immunization plans. The Eliminate Yellow Fever Epidemics, in short known as I strategy, was developed in response for 2 urban yellow fever outbreaks in Luanda, Angola, and Kinshasa, in Democratic Republic of the Congo, with international exportation to other countries, including China, showing that yellow fever poses a serious global threat requiring new strategic thinking. The I strategy is comprehensive, multi-component, and multi-partner. In addition to recommending vaccination activities, it calls for the building resilient urban centers, planning for urban readiness, and strengthening the application of the International Health Regulations 2005. It is expected that by the end of 2026, almost 1 billion people will be protected against yellow fever vaccination.
As a mother, you kind of look out for your children's future, and in one small way, I might have contributed. Maybe my grandchildren will not be getting that same sickness. Well, at first we thought it was the flu. You know how you have the body pains and fever, and then it got worse. The body aches got even worse. Yeah, that's the haunting memory of dengue is the body ache. They explained they were from World Mosquito Program, and then I said, oh, you know, I had dengue. I was so shocked. And come inside. I was really happy that I could help in a little way, because I knew that pain is beyond explanation. At first they were curious, but then as the awareness grew and ads came out on TV, then the realization hit that at last something to combat these mosquito-borne diseases. Now that the mosquitoes are out, hopefully in the not too distant future, all these mosquito-borne diseases will be a thing of the past.
Yellow fever vaccine is a very effective and safe vaccine. With one dose, we can protect people for life. And to control an outbreak, with 90% of the population vaccinated, is enough to control the outbreak. We need a stockpile of yellow fever vaccine to be ready to ship vaccine immediately when we have an outbreak. It's very difficult to forecast outbreaks, so the only way to be ready and to respond immediately with a mass vaccination campaign is to have in stock 6 million doses every year. This current stockpile maintained at the level of 6 million doses is managed by an international coordinating group called ICG, which is composed by 4 agencies, WHO, UNICEF, Red Cross Federation, and Médecins Sans Frontières. When a country is facing an outbreak of yellow fever, they should immediately communicate to WHO that they need a vaccine to control the outbreak. WHO, in consultation with the partners, make a decision in 48 hours. After the decision is made, the shipping of the vaccine should arrive in the country in 7 days. Once the vaccine arrives in the country, all the international coordinating group agencies are willing to help the Ministry of Health to conduct a campaign to control the outbreak. It's very important to have a good quality of the campaign, covering at least 90% of the population to have an effective control. The main objective of having a stockpile of vaccine is to control an urban outbreak, because the disease spreads rapidly when we have the vector, which is the mosquitoes, and very dense populations. This year, with Angola outbreak, is the first time that we have depleted the stockpile. So ICG has 6 million. That has been enough since 2001, but this time we have depleted twice the stockpile. We have used 30 million doses of vaccine. This time that the stockpile has been depleted twice, we immediately start working with the manufacturer to replenish the stockpile as soon as possible. And also we work with UNICEF Supply Division to prioritize the shipments to make sure that the vaccine is prioritized to the stockpile.
Another mosquito-borne disease is chikungunya, which is a viral disease transmitted to humans via infected Aedes aegypti mosquitoes. Symptoms typically include fever, joint pain, headache, muscle pain, joint swelling, and rash. In most cases, a patient's condition will improve within a week. However, occasionally, the joint pain may last for months or even years. Chikungunya shares some clinical signs with Zika and dengue, leading to the potential misdiagnosis in areas where these diseases are prevalent. Common symptoms include sudden fever, joint and muscle pain, rashes, headache, fatigue, and so on. Chikungunya is a viral disease transmitted to humans by infected Aedes aegypti mosquitoes, first identified during an outbreak in Tanzania in 1952. Chikungunya is a virus that is transmitted between humans by Aedes aegypti mosquito, comes from the Kimakon language. The word chikungunya comes from the Kimakondic language. It means to become contorted. As the disease causes debilitating joint pain that induces a stooped appearance, between 2014 and 2017, there was a large outbreaks across the Americas with more than 2.5 million suspected cases of chikungunya recorded in the Caribbean islands. Latin America and the United States, more than 600 deaths were attributed to this disease during the period. So this chikungunya is caused by a virus transmitted primarily by Aedes aegypti mosquitoes. These mosquitoes bite during the day, usually just after sunrise and around sunset. Sudden fever, muscle and joint pain, rash, headache, and fatigue are the symptoms chikungunya causes, like severe fever and debilitating joint pain, and shares some clinical signs with Zika and dengue, which sometimes leads to misdiagnosis in areas where these diseases are prevalent. Symptoms usually improve within a week. However, sometimes the joint pain may persist for months or even years. Chikungunya is most prevalent in Asia, Africa, and the Americas and the Pacific. It also occurs in the warmer parts of Europe. Chikungunya cases have been reported from more than 100 countries. Chikungunya occurs in sporadic outbreaks that are often separated by periods of more than 10 years So it is difficult to assess the global burden of the disease, but the virus is widespread. Between 53,000 and 330,000 cases are estimated to occur on an average each year worldwide. But the 2014 epidemic in the Americas saw more than 1 million chikungunya cases reported in a year. Chikungunya spreads wherever Aedes aegypti mosquitoes are present. It's a virus transmitted between humans primarily by mosquito, which is commonly found around homes and urban areas. There is no specific antiviral drug treatment for chikungunya. Treatment primarily focuses on relieving symptoms with common medications. There is no vaccine for chikungunya. Prevention relies on reducing exposure to mosquito bites by removing mosquito breeding sites, using insecticides to suppress the mosquito population, and wearing protective clothing and repellents. However, the world's mosquitoes program's well vacuum method is showing promising results internationally, helping to block the transmission of chikungunya as well as other viruses transmitted by the Aedes aegypti mosquitoes such as Zika, dengue, and yellow fever.
Atacó bastante los huesos, las articulaciones, las fiebres. Fue algo bien tremendo porque cuando a mí me dio esa enfermedad, recuerdo que fui al Seguro Social y no me podía ni siquiera parar, ¿verdad? Y que lo que tiene mami, que yo no aguanto un gran dolor, mami, tan inútil, Marilyn, le digo yo así, ¿verdad? Viera, mami, qué horrible. Y a los días caigo yo, y yo lavando estaba. No puede ser que me bote esta enfermedad, dije yo. Yo le voy a hacer frente, pero no aguanto. El gran dolor, miren, en los huesos. Si no, ni a los buses me podía subir. Mire que me daban la mano los señores para que me subiera. Y yo he sentido dolores aquí en las rodillas, en los tobillitos de los pies. Y aquí en los encajes, un gran dolor que no me dejaba caminar. Las unidades de salud, en este caso, que es la unidad de Metalillo, se vio bastante afectada, ¿verdad? Con una afluencia de personas exagerada, ¿verdad? Nos mandaron a nosotros a hacer acciones antivectoriales a los caseríos, que fuéramos a los diferentes caseríos, nos apoyáramos unos con otros entre los compañeros promotores para poder llegar y hacer acciones, abatización, hicimos campaña de recolección de objetos inservibles, anduvimos tomando casos febriles. Gracias a esas acciones que se dieron, pues fuimos viendo la baja de los casos de chikungunya poco a poco.
Después que me dio a mí el chikungunya, aún a este tiempo, ya casi son 4 años, a mí me quedaron las secuelas de unos dolores en las articulaciones, sobre todo de las rodillas, de los tobillos, los codos y los hombros. Siempre siento una molestia que con analgésicos pues la voy manteniendo calmada, la voy controlando, pero que sí me quedaron secuelas de la chikungunya, porque esa enfermedad fue muy seria y es muy seria. Sí la padecí y puedo dar todos estos datos porque son reales, los padecí.
Mosquito-borne diseases kill more than 1 million people and infect up to 700 million each year, almost 1 in 10 people. These diseases do not ask your name, where you live, or how young or old you are. Instead, they come without warning and leave sadness and sickness behind. As climate change, globalisation and urbanisation accelerates the speed in which these diseases move across regions, it's more important than ever for people to be aware of the risks and take action. Our Wolbachia method is helping in the fight against mosquito-borne diseases, protecting almost 11 million people in 13 countries. As it's World Mosquito Week, help us raise awareness and create a world where we can all live without the fear and suffering caused by mosquito-borne disease.
And there are some natural preventive strategies or methods through using nature and environment. We can get rid of these mosquitoes or mosquito repelling plants, which we will look at in brief, without using chemical mosquito repellents or a bug zapper. These outsmart mosquitoes can be repelled by using some certain plants. So make sure you have these plants in your garden or around your home. Sage is a plant that is used strategically, which can help repel mosquitoes while adding color and texture to your outdoor spaces. Use fresh sage as a mosquito repellent by crushing leaves and rubbing them on your skin or clothing, or tie a bundle of sage stems, fresh or dried, and toss them into a fire pit or chimney to create a cloud of mosquito repelling smoke. No fire pit? Light one end of the sage bunch and let it smolder on a fire-resistant tray. Grow sage in pots or use it to edge planting beds in full sun and well-drained soil. Continue to learn about how to cultivate many such plants. And other plants like citronella, lavender, marigold, nasturtiums, rosemary, basil, mint, are few other plants that can repel mosquitoes and bugs. That's why this tulsi plant, also known as holy basil, is recommended in every home, as it is a medicinal herb and plant that protects from various diseases and is a must for every household across the world, irrespective of one's religion, ethnicity, race, or anything. As long as you are a human being or an animal, plants around our home like tulsi, holy basil, helps to prevent and repel mosquitoes. The strong smell of the tulsi also repels several other insects like white flies, asparagus, beetles, and carrot flies. There are also different varieties of basil like lemon basil, cinnamon basil, which are equally effective in the warding of mosquitoes. Mosquitoes hate the smells of lavender, citronella, clove, peppermint, basil, cedarwood, eucalyptus, peppermint, lemongrass, and rosemary. That's why these plants repel mosquitoes. That's why the Indian basil or tulsi plant is an important part of Indian tradition. Besides medicinal properties, the strong aroma of the plant is known to drive away mosquitoes and various insects, and also effective in killing mosquito larvae and keeping mosquitoes population away. So plant a few tulsi shrubs near your windows and doors. That's why we see a common practice to see tulsi plant in front of every house or in front of doors, so that it prevents and repels various insects and mosquitoes entering into our homes. So with this, we shall end this session now, and we will take up the presentations. Those who are due for their presentations can share your details in chat box. Next 5 minutes, we'll be taking up the presentations. The feedback form has been raised in the form of polls for the session 1. We request everyone to quickly fill up the feedback form and stay back for the presentations. After filling up the feedback form, presenters can raise your hand so that we can unmute yourself, or we can unmute you from our side so that you can proceed for the presentations after sharing your details. And we request all the presenters to complete the formalities before the presentation or immediately after the presentation by going through the presentation guidelines on the website. It is mandatory. And share all the required files in the specified format. So now we have Dr. Mohammed Gutigar, who would be presenting on utilization of maternal health care services by the Karoga women in southern Karnataka. We request everyone to quickly fill the feedback form so that we can close the feedback form and start the session. Any others willing to present can share your details in your chat box. Dr. Mohammed, you can unmute yourself, start your video and presentation with your introduction. Can you hear me? Dr. Mohammed, you have raised your hand. You have been given permissions to share, unmute yourself, start your video and presentation. You can use another device, mobile, laptop, tablet. To make your presentation. can unmute yourself or log in once again by logging out if you are facing any difficulties. You have to unmute yourself. Your PPT is visible. Dr. Mohammed, you have to unmute yourself. We can't hear you. Dr. Mohammed, you have to unmute yourself. Or you can sign out and sign in once again. Yeah, now we can see you have unmuted. You can talk, but we can't hear you. You can increase the volume to maximum in your device. Screen size is fine. You have to increase your volume. We can't hear you. You can make your presentation full screen. You have to connect to your audio and make sure you're unmuted and you are using the correct mic in audio settings. I think you have some issue. You can continue tomorrow. Okay, there are no presentations. So we'll close the session today. Thank you everyone for joining us. So we request everyone to fill the overall feedback form. Yesterday was also World Photo Day, and we all know, for everyone, a single photo speaks more than 1,000 words. And it is also, photos are used everywhere as memories and also as a documentation tool, as part of documentation. And social workers, not only just social workers, everyone use photos for the documentation, for the reporting, for the memories and for the evidence. And World Photo Day is celebrated when the French government purchased the patent for the daguerreotype process. The daguerreotype process is a photographic process that creates highly detailed images on a sheet of copper plate with a thin coat of silver. The day requires enthusiasts, participants to share a photo of their world, which can be anything the photographer chooses. Now it is very easy that we don't need any camera, which is exclusively meant to take photograph. Today we can take with our mobiles, handheld devices, tablets, iPads, and so on. The definition of photography is quite literally drawing the light, and the British scientist Sir John Herschel came up with it in 1839, and he used the Greek word photos, which means light, and graphy, which means drawing or writing. Louis Daguerre was born on November 18, 1787 in Cornelis and Paris, France, and hailed from a middle class and grew up during the time of great political upheaval with the turmoil that was the French Revolution. The revolution involved the common people versus bourgeoisie brought on by the King Louis XVI poor's economic policies. The poor wanted to improve their standard of living, and the ruler class wanted to hold on to the feudal regime. These events often affected the arts, as it inspired artists to create work that encapsulates the era for the young Daguerre that was drawing. In 1800, despite having a limited formal education, Daguerre was a natural artist, and at 13, he became apprenticed to an architect, where he learned hands-on mechanics of the art and the science of designing structures. This created the foundation for the understanding of how objects were built. Just 4 years later, Daguerre moved to Paris to study and practice scene painting for the opera. In the early 1820s, Daguerre made a breakthrough. He and his fellow collaborators invented transparent paintings illuminated to stimulate movement and other effects, and it was known as a diorama. Crowds would gather and watch these displays of landscapes and colors, but in next decade, he fell on hard times and lapsed into bankruptcy because of his costliness of his invention. Daguerre had known Joseph Nesfor-Nevsky, who produced the world's first permanent photograph in 1825 to incorporate into his dioramas. Nes died in 1833, and Daguerre continued experimenting with photography and with dioramas. After combining chemicals and silver plates, he came up with the daguerreotype process and patented it in 1839 as a gift to the world. After this bold union, photography continued to evolve and capture moments of our lives. In 2010, professional photographer Korsky Era founded World Photography Day to inspire people to take photos that meant something to them. So few interesting facts about photos. Especially photography pays the highest remuneration and salary across the world. And this day is meant about capturing your world. Take some time and really think about what exemplifies your world. Perhaps it is something you have created with your hands, or you love, you have for your pet, or something that is observed in your environment or around you. Art is subjective, so don't be afraid to color outside the lines. There are so many famous photographers that have produced some of the most beautiful images in the world. Richard Avedon, Dorothy Allen, Robert Frank are just some of the names who have shown their expert talents with photography. Research a photographer that moves you and lend the style. If you are more of an appreciator of photos, you can check out the hashtag and post your photos with global citizens. The first photo of the moon was taken in 1851, the moonshot. Jaguary's father named one of his daughters Mary Antoinette. When Jaguary went to Paris, he was an extra on the stage of Paris famed opera and was known for his dancing skills and as dancing painter. Queen Victoria and Prince Albert had a dark room that used to process photography. The earliest known use of abbreviated photo was from Queen Victoria in an 1860 letter. The art of taking photos isn't just pointing and clicking. There's so much that goes into the photography that shouldn't be overlooked. The background, the flash color, shutter speed, and more all need to come together in just the right way to evoke a truly moving piece of art. Taking a day to really commend all those who have devoted their lives to the craft. And digital cameras on your smartphones have become customary, but that doesn't mean we should take them for granted. When things are accessible, we lose sight of all that work that went into making them. Technology has evolved fast, which means we need reminders to slow down. A great photographer can make the mundane appear spectacular. Everyday objects can take on a deeper meaning, deepening on the eye of the photographer. This is a day to thank all those to see the beauty in unsuspecting things. So with this, we shall conclude today's sessions. Thank you everyone for joining us. So we are coming to the closure of the 10 days conference with just 2 days left. Anyone who would like to make presentations, hurry up with your presentations and complete the formalities and join in for the tomorrow's and day after tomorrow's last day's conference. So thank you once again for joining us, and see you all tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Take care. Good night.